If you want to trade like a rebel, you got to come to RebelCon 2022. It's going to be in Dallas, Texas, at the fabulous Four Seasons Resort. It will be more fun and more live trading than we've ever done before. That's why it's called RebelCon 2022. We're going to have barbecues and double the amount of live trading. The guest speakers, as soon as we announce those, this thing's going to be sold out, limited to 250 people. Sign up now for RebelCon 2022 at the Four Seasons in Dallas, Texas.
Welcome to the rebellion.
Here we go. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the Rebel's Edge, and I've got my brother with a chapeau on his head. Where is he? We don't ever know, but we think he's in Paris. I mean, the guy's been in Croatia. He's been, who God only knows. But how's it going over there, John? Is everything going well?
Everything's going well, Pete. But boy, they had to book us on another flight home because for some reason, a whole bunch of Dreamliners. I've got friends over here with us, Pete, as you know, and they've had a couple Dreamliners cancel. I thought we were fine to leave today, but then our Dreamliner canceled, so they had to fly in a whole new Dreamliner. Not just a crew, a whole new Dreamliner.
That's great. That's
yeah, my wife was maybe thinking it was the Chinese hacking into the Boeing system. I hope not.
It could be a lot of different things, but I can tell one thing. One thing I'm positive of, you've had a few cigars and probably a couple of whiskeys in the last 10 days.
Oh, yeah.
I can hear it in your throat.
Well, yeah, maybe just a few, Pete. I mean, I need a vacation from my vacation over here.
Well, but, that's a fact.
We went through the museums today here in Paris, so we made the extra couple days count. But I'm glad to be on with you. Let's talk about inflation, Pete. We got that inflation reading, CPI, and it wasn't as hot as the 9.1 last month. What's your take? And then I'll give you mine.
Yeah, I think, John, everybody wants to decide, hey, this has peaked. It has done this. It's done that. Well, maybe it has. I think a lot of people think it has, but I think the reality is we really don't know. I mean, when we look around and all of a sudden we start seeing oil prices start to reach up again. We were at 88. Here we are, 92, 93. Look over at what's been going on with natural gas. It was 6 a month ago. It's now back above 8. So, there's a lot of different things in play here. I know everybody's focused on the CPI. They're looking at PPI as well. There's a lot of different things out there, John, but we are still in very heavy when you look at the inflation numbers. Yes, we came down. What was it, 9.1, and we came down to 8.5. 8.5 is still a big number. I mean, that's a pretty big number. How about you? What do you think right now?
Pete, I think you nailed it. The issue is that these are backward-looking numbers. And so they're not really where we are right now with either natural gas or crude oil, for that matter, for some of the crops, because the crops came way down. Wheat, corn, soybeans, they eased pretty substantially. Now they're going right back up, and the processors are trying to lock in prices. So are the cattle people. But I got to believe, Pete, that we're going to see another round of high inflation. It's not over yet. In other words, it would be my statement. But I wanted to also talk with you about something that might be over, Pete, maybe a little crypto winter thawing out. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it is thawing out, John. I mean, we've been in this, matter of fact, we were talking about with AJ just on Tuesday here at the Rebel's Edge, and he did a great job filling in, and we talked about exactly this. We were talking about the ranges that we've been looking at, and the range basically over the last few months, John, has been about 19,000 to 24,000, and I'm talking about Bitcoin itself. Now, and some of the other cryptocurrencies are doing pretty well as well, but we broke through that 24,000 today, and we had a pretty nice jump close to 25,000. So are we ready to get into the next level? Has it thawed enough? Are we seeing some of that ice start to melt off of this thing with the winter? Maybe, because with Ethereum, John, what did we hit? 1900. It's up 5% today, something like that. So I think there's a possibility that maybe we're starting to move in that direction. What do you think? You're the crypto guy. You know better than
Well,
me.
and Pete, when you and I took this break from television,
Mhm.
the week before I took that break, I remember it traded Ethereum, that is ETH, traded below 1,000. So to your point, if you were somebody that could have picked it up at 900 and now it's double that, because Pete, we're holding right at 1,900
Yeah.
per Ethereum. I mean, or Ether. That is a pretty substantial return, a lot better than the return that you got out of Bitcoin, by the way. And I think the focus is going to continue to be on these two, primarily these two
Yeah.
cryptocurrencies. And my bet's that Ethereum continues to outperform Bitcoin, even if we just keep melting up, Pete. I think Ethereum moves faster higher.
Well, earnings are still in season, John. We got Disney, and holy smokes, those numbers look good. They beat on the earnings. They beat on the revenue. They absolutely delivered everywhere, even with Disney Plus. But here's the issue, John, and I don't know the answer to this, but maybe you've got at least some sort of a feeling about this. But when you look at this and you see the fact that they're going to start raising the prices, they're going to cut, do you want commercials? Do you not want commercials? The other issue going forward for ESPN is going to be, what about the Big Ten? Because it looks to me like the Big Ten's walking away from Disney, right? It looks like they're starting to move away from ESPN, maybe back over towards Fox and the others. So what do you think right now for Disney? Have they kind of jumped in front of themselves a little bit faster than they should have, or is this the right move today?
I think it's the right move, Pete, but I would be an aggressive seller of calls on this move. The reason for that, folks, is, as you know, a call option is the future price of a stock, and you get to pick your expiration, in other words, date or time into the future, as well as strike price. I would be selling time right now, Pete, because I think it's made its move coming off of 100 all the way up to here. You nailed it also with the idea that Disney Plus, on the ad supported Disney Plus, is going to hit us, I think, in early December, Pete. That's earlier than anybody else. Netflix isn't going to be ready with theirs yet. Obviously, Amazon obviously has their offering. It's already out there. A lot of people didn't even know that, but it's already out there, their ad supported model. Yeah. But the big boy, Netflix, Disney's already going at them, and they're going to hit them faster and harder by getting it to the market in December. That's what I think they're being rewarded for today, Pete, with this, pretty significant pop. Now, what about, speaking of costs and travel and extra extra nights in hotel rooms when they cancel my flights?
Yeah, great.
We got rental cars, Pete, and you noted that they have come down pretty substantially. Airfares, not so much yet,
right?
But rental car, because I think a lot of people just were shocked. Number one, you couldn't get one for a long time, and that's great for some of the tertiary things like Turo, Pete.
Yeah,
that app that you.
My favorite. Yeah,
I love that thing. You're basically renting somebody else's car.
It's like a VRBO for a car.
Yeah, they bring it right to the airport for you.
Perfect. I love them.
Yeah, versus you waiting in line at a counter someplace. But do you think that keeps coming down, or is it just like the other inflation we talked about, where it's dipped and now it's getting ready to make another move higher?
That's a great call. I honestly don't know, John. I mean, I think it's pretty interesting. I mean, airfares are down 8% June to July, and then you look over at car rentals down 9.5%. You look at hotels only down 3%. But here was something interesting that I did stumble across as well, John. When you're looking at this, how about if you compare it to the pre-pandemic? When you look at rental cars, they're up 48% still. So there's some room for that to maybe drop down a little bit, potentially, hopefully, for all of us that are traveling and we're having to use rent-a-cars. Although, to your point, I'm a Turo guy through and through. But you look at hotels, they're still up 6%. You look at airfares, up still 16%. So there is still some inflation there when you go back in time. But this is something that, it's going to be dependent, I think, still on crude. What's going on? How about, air fuel and everything else? I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into this. And I'm not convinced we may have peaked, but I don't think that means or implies that we're absolutely going to drop like a stone either. Hopefully we get a little bit less expensive, but you know what? Time will tell.
Well, and for all of you who want to travel, don't forget RebelCon. Had to work that one in there, Pete.
That's really
RebelCon. If you go to marketrebellion.com/Dallas, you can see all about it, folks. Don't need to beat you up about it, but we got a great speaker lineup, a lot of great education and discussions, 2 days of live trading, marketrebellion.com/Dallas. And Pete, my unusual today plays into this, believe it or not. I mean, it's not a direct play on jet fuel. It's not a direct play on hotel rooms and so forth, but clearly virtually everything we get has to come to us in one way or another by fossil fuel, at least at this stage in our lives, Pete.
Yeah.
Because, even if you're driving a Tesla, somewhere that electricity is those turbines are being turned by fossil fuel. If you're lucky enough to be in a place where it's, hydrogen or rather hydroelectric or solar or wind, more power to you. But for the rest of us, it's fossil fuel. And XLE is an ETF that tracks that. It tracks the biggest stocks that are pulling energy out of the ground, fossil fuel energy, and turning it into electricity and running cars, running jet airplanes, and so forth. So, Pete, it hit twice. Unusual activity in there today. And that would be one that I'd say definitely keep your eye on.
And John, I'll add one last thing to that as well. So we had 2 buyers of upside calls. How about the fact that there was some monstrous put buying? Now, everybody would look at that and say, you're a standard guy who knows nothing about it. And there's lots of them on the media world that we know of. But that would say, you know what? They're buying those puts. That means it's going down. No, that's not what it means. As a matter of fact, what they're doing is they're rolling these puts up to protect their position. And when you look at the XLE, 43% of the XLE is Exxon and Chevron together. So understand that, you get a better understanding. But they went out from the September 60 puts, John. They rolled them all the way to December on the 70 puts. So in other words, they brought up the level where they want to have that protection if oil were to turn over. And they're not expecting that to happen. But that's just a great way. It tells me how smart those traders are, that they're actually moving that level up and giving a little protection just in case we see a turn in crude oil, which, by the way, is trading over 94. The next one I'm going to give you, the number 2 right now, is Royal Caribbean. Now, we haven't seen a whole lot of action of late, except for this, John. We have only seen bullish activity in Royal Caribbean and Carnival and Norwegian since the start of August. So that's something interesting because they're all sitting right on their fannies right now at the low end of the curve of where they are. So it's interesting to see that. So we've got these Royal Caribbean. It was trading around 43.40. They're buying almost the exact at the monies, the 44 strike calls. They bought 5,300 of those calls, John, looking for a little bit of a jump to the upside. It's August, which means it's short term, but that's something that might play out and could be daggone interesting, I think, if we finally see that these cruise ships, along with some of these others, but we talk about this all the time, are they going to start moving to the upside? And we also have talked about huge short interests. There's a lot of short interests in many of these names, and the cash flows are very difficult. So when the time is right, at some point, maybe they get a squeeze, maybe they get pushed, but at some point in time, maybe we'll start to see these things start to get off, and somebody is looking at Royal Caribbean today that maybe that's one of those that can move a little bit higher. So now we're going to jump to some sports, John. We got to get into it quick.
Let's do it.
I think the most exciting thing that I'm seeing right now is we've got 2 preseason games tonight. That sounds boring, and it kind of is, except for the fact that you've got New England playing the Giants. And why is that interesting? Because Bill Belichick is the only coach in all of the NFL, and I would say probably all of college football, even Division 3, 2, and 1, whatever, 1AA. He does not have a defensive coordinator, nor does he have an offensive coordinator, John. I mean, that's really pretty interesting. Oh, by the way, there's several Belichicks. You got Steve Belichick. He's got the linebackers. You got Brian Belichick. He's got the safeties. You got Bill Belichick doing whatever it is he's doing. I guess he's kind of doing it all. He's a jack of all trades. But what do you think of that? Because you played football a long time. So did I. I remember having an offensive coordinator in high school. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think, Pete, it's a question of, and you have talked about this, I know, on your Sunday morning talk show where Pete has Sunday morning, he has the Sports Huddle folks on WCCO 8:30 a.m. and goes from 10 until noon with his pal Maxie,
Yep.
and they talk about all kinds of things about sports. And one of those things is people thought these guys that were his offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator, when they went somewhere, they thought they were gods. They thought they would get it all done and have national championships in the case of college football, or playoffs in the case of pro. Didn't happen.
No.
None of them, Pete. I can't name one that has been successful after leaving Belichick.
Not Matt
Instead,
Patricia.
they just get fired. I mean, and so
They all
Belichick-
come back though, John. They all come back to New England. There's nowhere else to go. And Bill says, come on, bring you aboard. Hey, Judge, you just got fired from the Giants. Come on back. We'll take you on. I mean, that is the interesting part about it, is he brings these guys back, but they're not coordinators. Now they're just position coaches, which is sort of interesting as well, right? I mean, it all plays together. Speaking of Judge, John, how about Aaron Judge? You and I have talked about him once before, but is this guy about as amazing as you can find? We talked about how big he is, how strong he is. And as far as we know, and there's no reason to guess on it, but he's not on steroids as far as we know. And this is a guy who's on pace to be right there and maybe break the record. Is he about as fun a guy to watch as you've seen, John, in baseball? Because I just find the guy to be completely amazing. His size, his strength, his speed, his athleticism, his hand-eye coordination, and what he's been able to do this year with his bat is just extraordinary.
Yeah, and Pete, he's at that stage in his career. He's a very young guy. I realize that. But he's at that stage where he can play for a monster contract too. So I'm not saying that he doesn't put out all the time. He does. This guy just hit his 45th home run yesterday, a solo shot to give the Yanks a 3-1 lead in a game, Pete. Mm-hmm. But I think that he is playing himself into probably a $350 or $400 million kind of contract, Pete. I don't think anybody in sport is going to have a bigger contract than when this guy gets that next contract.
Yep.
And obviously that little bit of a carrot dangling out there doesn't hurt either. But again, he puts it all out every day. It's not a question of him just playing for the contract. He does it because he loves it.
Yeah, it's fun. Well, John, I'm excited that you were able to make it. We didn't know if you would or not because you've been all over the map. You've gone through Europe back and forward and left and right and everything. You've been in Germany or anything?
No, but we'll have to talk about them in a future show, Pete, because they're in a world of hurt. Everybody over here in Europe's talking about how Germany, who was the leader of Europe, now is kind of really struggling, and they're going to have a tough winter.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. Well, John, thanks a lot. It's great. I'm glad you were able to make it. By the way, in the wings, I got to tell you, we had our man Glenn. And if you don't know Glenn, you can go back to Hard Knocks when they were in Houston with the Texans. Glenn is featured all over that thing. They didn't care who Bill O'Brien or anybody else was. They had Glenn running around. And Glenn works for us. He's an unbelievable guy. We love him to death. And I got to tell you, you got to tune in. See, there he is. There he was waiting in the wings.
I was ready. I'm waiting for you.
We appreciate you, Glenn. You're up one of these days. It's going to happen.
I know it.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for being on the Rebels Edge. We'll look forward to seeing you Monday, Tuesday, Thursday next week.
Bang.